Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Equalizer Season 3, Episode 11. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, a very poignant episode. It's one of those things where the topic isn't something like, it's one of those things that you feel like, oh, it feels like it's been on the, rise. I mean, because it has been in more recent years, but it is that thing of, it's never gone away. It's always been there. It's just become so blatant and in everyone's face that everyone is aware of it. Everyone sees kind of the terribleness of it because it turns out there's a neo-Nazi, not even just neo-Nazi, just Nazism, and just how attacking the Jewish community, in particular in this episode, a woman was attacked and another woman in the community named Rebecca came to Robin for her help with all this, which we'll get to Robin's side of things, but kind of for focus on, obviously this hits home for Harry being Jewish, and obviously he's kind of lost touch a little bit with I think the Jewish faith and stuff like that because of I think everything with the complicated situation with his mom and everything. I think complicated that for him because even the rabbi that he ends up running into being like, hey, I know you, right? Oh yeah, you're Sarah's child, because we hadn't really touched on Harry's family at this point in time, and I was like, oh, I didn't know his mom died. His mom apparently also died fairly young. He talked about his parents getting divorced and he lived with his dad, and his mom died I guess while he was still potentially young. And, but yeah, he has this very poignant conversation with Dante that I thought was so interesting. Interesting in just the sad fact of it all. He's like, I remember growing up where it's people will think you're white until they find out you're Jewish. And then it's also never wear a Star of David. Because for him, it's all right, sadly, that's a reality in this world of yes, I mean, the Holocaust happened, the persecution of Jewish people is a thing. But it's kind of that thing of that's, you think in your head, that's years ago. There's no way that happens now. And even Dante saying, I thought that same way until obviously, what was it, episode 13 of last season, that opened his eyes, and you're just you wouldn't think stuff like that happens, and it's that sad reality of it, and that's also the thing too. I don't want to turn this into a compare and contrast of the black experience versus the Jewish experience. I think we can both admit bad things have happened to both groups. It's, to me, it's a trauma thing that you don't, to me, there's no point in comparing trauma. Everyone has their trauma, the terrible things that have happened to them, but there's no this is worse than this. It's everyone's trauma is their own, and it's just both groups have gone through something terrible. And obviously talking just from the conversation of Dante and Harry talking, but obviously there's plenty of other groups that have suffered that same thing, where it's just to me, it's not a who had it worse. It's just no, it's just a shitty, hateful people exist that attack people because of being different religions, so on and so forth, and background, and just being different in general. And so obviously this means a lot to Harry. So deep diving into this case, obviously knowing that there's a larger, yes, it's a hate-filled group that's all about attacking the Jewish community, and ultimately finding out all the people involved in it. For example, one of them ended up, the moment they went to that show, that it was a music show or whatever, and they, Harry and Mel walked in there and they were all staring at Mel. I was yeah, I was that's not them staring for a good reason. It's oh, here's an Asian woman. I got that vibe immediately, but especially when the music started hitting and they were literally doing the Nazi salute, you're okay, yeah. Then there's no even hiding. It's oh, cool, let's get to check and bounce. But the moment they were chasing after someone, I was it's going to be that kid Wes, isn't it? And it is. It's that's horrendous. His mom is converting to Judaism, and the fact of the matter is, because for her, it's she wanted to convert to, because after losing her husband, that the Jewish community, the particular community she's been living in, looked after her, and she wanted to convert because I think she found a home in that. And her son kind of at first he was kind of hey, mom, you need to get out of here, you're being threatened. But now to find out he's part of that same group, he was threatening his mom to get her out of this situation. But the fact is, because we never got a resolution to that. It's just kind of like a, man, that sucks. Her son is this hateful person and she doesn't even realize. It's like you're attacking the community that's not only looked after your mom, that's looked after you, but he looks at it as like it's them planning. Once again, it's that whole, because the biggest issue is, once again, that conversation of like the globist theory of like, oh yeah, Jewish people run the world. Harry even bringing up, once again, even saying, like, putting it statistically, I thought it was kind of, but he's like, yo, the amount of Jewish people in the world, he's like, Taylor Swift has more social media followers than Jewish people in the entire world, you know? But it is a nigga like, oh yeah, we run the world, because people use the whole thing of like, yes, there are Jewish people within high ranking positions, but to me, like, and I've heard, plenty of Jewish people will tell you the harm in saying like, oh, we're powerful, we run the world. It gets that mindset in people of like, creating Jewish people see them as the enemy. Like, everything that's wrong in my life is because a Jewish person at the top, is sprinkling that down and causing me issues. Like, it fosters that hate in people, perpetuating this stereotype. And just know, and even like, even Mel's like, it doesn't make sense. It's like, this kid is a well-educated person, comes from a good family. And Harry's like, this is the new age. Like, the Nazi movement doesn't look like what it used to. And he's even saying like, you don't know who could be a part of it. Like, hate-filled people can be in front of you the entire time. You just don't know about it. I mean, we find out the comic book store dude that like the fact is, he didn't seem hateful, but I guess he was covering his tracks, because it's like, yeah, I don't know if he saw Harry as a Jewish person, but I mean, Mel being Asian isn't hidden. So the fact is, he was like having an okay conversation with them, made me go like, I would have never suspected he would. But that's also the point. Like, hate is there in front of you. Even it's like, yeah, the person in the grocery store could be a hate-filled person. You just don't know what's in people's hearts, what's in people's minds, how how they get swept up in that hate, and how they use certain things to justify their hate. And obviously, like, once again, this hits home for Harry. It's just, and we find out, obviously, this is part of a larger group that they're planning something known as the Final Solution, and they were going to attack the synagogue. Luckily, Harry, Robin, and Mel were able to shut that down, take everyone out, and expose Kent. And I love Harry being like, oh, all you people out there who are watching this, who are commenting and stuff, is like, hey, don't worry about it. I've like backtracked all this, and your information all this has been sent to your employees, to your family, so everyone's going to know you for the hate-filled person that you are. It's, the fact is that you're so okay with this, and so he's like, yeah, basically he was basically like, oh, hope you have a great day or something like that. Was kind of how he wrapped that up, but especially because when he talked to the rabbi who like the rabbi was in a hospital after getting beat up, and he's cracking jokes, but I thought was such a poignant thing of like, we can't let them take away our laughter. For him, it's like, I won't, like, the fact is, when we get pushed down, we rise up again. That's how we show them our strength and show them that we won't be kept down. And he even talks about Harry's name. It's like, your name, his Jewish name meaning laughter. And it's like, don't ever let them kind of take that spark from you, because once you do, that's when they win. So like, even in the face of such hatred and stuff, we have to kind of keep our sense of humor. Like, we have to like maintain us. We can't let them take from us again. Obviously, like, if you don't know, obviously there's the show on Prime Video, Hunters, like, it coming back. I mean, once again, it's been an extensive like thing of like, yeah, anti-Semitism has always been there, but it feels like, once again, it just feels like it's even more so out there. But maybe it's just because of the internet that you're a lot more aware of like all of it, so like Hunters coming back when it did ended up happening at like a very like prominent time, so I mean, even 2020 when it came out, like the first season, but you get the point I'm trying to make, though. It's just like, it's never going to be like not a poignant conversation that needs to be had, a discussion that needs to be had, because it is that hate exists in this world, and it's obviously it's a very pointed hate, but hate can also run deep across many different groups, against many different groups. You get what I'm saying? So. But luckily, everything was kind of dealt with. And Harry learned something about his mom in this episode because he doesn't have the fond memories of his mom. Like the rabbi was saying, like, "Oh, your mom was a good person," but he's like, she abandoned me, you know, and it's like she didn't really fight for me. And then he finds out because his mom was dealing with depression. And he's like, and now he understands more. Like, she made this sacrifice to pushing him away and sending him with his dad. And it's because he didn't, for one, his father didn't know how to help her, but he made a promise to her. It's like, right, don't tell Harry what's going on. But it's like she was dealing with like depression, and she couldn't, like, especially then. It's like, obviously, mental health is something that has only become, like, over the years, it's gotten more and more of a larger conversation, and it's a more open conversation. But especially then, it's like, you know, no one would have been able to have that conversation. And obviously, even now, it's a lot more of an open conversation than it used to be. But there is still that stigma around mental health, regardless, you know. But we've made strides on that front. So that was interesting for Harry to learn so much about his mom in that regard of like, right, she kind of sacrificed herself because, you know, she thought that was the best way she could help Harry make sure he grew up. And it's like, even the rabbi saying like, you are so special because you were born from love, you know? And so he's kind of, you know, honoring his mom at the end of the episode with Mel. And I thought that was beautiful. Especially how that kind of joins in conjunction with the other side of the episode, which I was curious. I brought this up last episode. I was curious whether the Miles and Robin stuff was going to happen at the same time as another case or what. And it turns out it is. But Robin and Mel and Harry try to give her space to like, hey, we'll work on this with Dante. You deal with everything at home. And so Robin has dirt on Miles that she could pull the trigger on, but it means she's willing to do whatever it takes to protect her daughter. Because Delilah's caught in this complicated position where it's like, I love both my parents. It's not like, oh man, one parent's terrible, one's great. It's like they're both good people. They both want the same thing. It's just Miles is in the dark about everything that Robin does. And if he like knew all the details about what she's up to, it would compromise everything because he'd probably want to be just like Vi and know all her business about, well, what are you up to? And even then, it doesn't change the larger conversation of your world bleeds over. And that's something, once again, Robin's been dealing with. And maybe that's also, I didn't think about that, but maybe that's also why that's really resonated even more in the back of her mind, because she knew this whole Miles thing was coming. Like, you know, he had talked about getting sole custody. And so I think that really like has been in the back of her mind of like, right, both my worlds bleeding together. And so Delilah's caught in this bad position because like both of her parents are arguing, and she's like, yeah, my friend went through the same thing and like ended up choosing a parent, but it's like she didn't make that choice because she wanted to. She was backed into a corner, had no choice. She had to choose a parent. And it's like, you're asking me to choose between both of you. I love you and I don't want to have to choose. But for her, she plans on choosing Miles because what her mom does is too important. It's like, Mom, I don't want you to stop. Yes, I might be in danger and stuff like that with you, but it doesn't mean I don't love you any less. I know you're going to do everything you can to protect me like you always have. But I've got to protect you because what you do is too important. And for Robin, that's the most heartbreaking thing. It's like, no, I'm the parent. You shouldn't have to do anything to protect me. Like, she already had to, like, what kind of really, like, escalated all this is that Delilah had to lie to her and cover for her mom. And it's like, that felt terrible for her, knowing, like, right now my daughter has to kind of lie about my world, especially to her father, that it really kind of, you know, and now she ultimately ends up making the choice of, and she talks to Vi about this, where it's like, I want to protect my daughter, and the fact of the matter is, I want to be the voice for the voiceless. I want to help those who feel like they have no one else to hear them or help them. But at what cost? It would cost me my daughter. My daughter, she should be a teenager. She shouldn't have to be worried about protecting me. I'm the parent. It's my job to protect her, not the other way around. And so if it means protecting my daughter, if it means keeping my daughter, then I will retire from this Equalizer situation because that comes first and foremost for her. And Vi just didn't want that to happen because she recognizes the good that Robin does. So she goes to Miles and shows him like, hey, this is what Robin had on you, and this showcases who she is. She didn't use this on you. She could have easily used this on you. And it turns out the dirt she had on him, and it's some, I guess, Bishop like maybe she went to Bishop's company, or like maybe she had this at the back burner. Whatever the case may be, it turns out that he ended up when he was, I think he was working for Doctors Without Borders, and he ended up treating, or when he was working overseas as a doctor, he ended up treating a guy who was a known terrorist. That guy went on to kill a lot more people, which for him, it's like, my job as a doctor is to do no harm. Like, it's not, it doesn't matter who my patient is. That comes first and foremost, is treating people. So, but it's like, yeah, it'll still be a blow to his reputation. But Vi's like, Robin might not be willing to fight you, but I will. Because the fact of the matter is, Robin is a good mother. But for him, it's like, that's not what this is about. This never was about that. It's like, yeah, but Robin's doing whatever she's doing, helping people. Yeah, so on and so forth. I get that. But who's going to look after Dee in that process? And she's like, me. Because the fact of the matter is, Dee isn't just yours and Robin's child. She is just as much my child. And I look after her. And the fact of the matter is, Dee has grown into she's growing into an incredible woman. And I will not let you take that from her. So once again, it's like, Robin might not want to get down in the mud and dirty, but I will if it means protecting this family. The good that Robin does, the person that Delilah is growing into. She's not becoming that person in spite of her situation. She's becoming that person because of her situation. And I thought that was so interesting. By having to do that. And even later on, Miles kind of concedes and drops the petition before they even get to a court situation. But Robin can tell, like, she probably noticed that the file was in a different position than when she left it, because I think it was slanted right, but now it's slanted left in the jacket pocket or whatever, or the bag pocket. And like, Vi's like, oh yeah, I don't know, he must have realized what it means raising a teenage daughter on his own. But Robin kind of knows, like, all right, I know you did this, and I appreciate it. But for Robin, this has kind of been an eye-opening situation, that she does want to find a better work-life balance situation. And she talks to Dee about it, and it's like, right, things do have to slightly change. And the fact is that going forward, I will train you to, not just in like how to fight, but also to recognize stuff, recognize danger, so that your mind is also it's just as much of a powerful weapon as your fist, So it's like, because I won't always be around to protect you. I had to learn that the hard way last season / the beginning of this season. So I want to make sure you are prepared, that even if I'm not around, that you are able to have the smarts, the tactics, the know-how to protect yourself, whenever you need to. And I'm sure that's going to be probably very prevalent in this season in that aspect of things. So Robin's able to keep doing what she's doing. She was going to have that conversation with Mel and Harry that she was going to retire, but she doesn't have to now. But so everything kind of works out. I am curious, are we going to have to really deal with it? I don't know if this whole Miles thing is fully resolved. For now it is, but there might be some residual stuff we kind of have to deal with as the season progresses. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But happy endings all around it. Everything worked out on both fronts, and Robin's side of things, as well as like Harry and Mel's like side of things in this episode. So it all worked out in that regard. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.